What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time tuning in, first and foremost, I just want to say thank you for being here. My name is TJ LaFavor, and I am an aspiring triathlete. I'm also kind of a young corporate up and coming professional, however you want to say it. I work for First Form International, and I help with the sales department there. And the whole purpose of my channel is, my goal is just to become the best version of myself, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, like professionally, across the board, right? And again, like I don't know everything, but my goal with this channel is to, as I chase that, just share my journey along the way, whether it be with my triathlons, whether it be my career, whether it be my marriage, trying to build a family, like share the whole thing, because I really think that's the best place where we learn in life, not only through our own learned experience, but also through others' experiences. And I just want to be somebody that is willing to share that, and if I help one person throughout this process, that it'll be worth it, and also be a cool log just for me to look back at. And so this is not your first time tuning in. I appreciate you coming back, and I know it's been a while since I've made a long form video, but I had a goal of getting to a certain amount of subscribers, or I would post another long form video, because I had some of my old videos that didn't do very great on the audio, and I think it was starting to negatively impact the video. I actually had some people start to say something, so I said, hey, I got to get to a certain amount of subscribers, then I can get a mic, which improve the audio. And so now my next goal is to get up to 500 subscribers. So if you're watching this and you do take away value from this video, I just ask that you like, comment, subscribe, share, whole thing. So just help support me to continue to share my journey, and hopes to help you, and really just create a community of like-minded individuals that all are working to invest in themselves first, right? That's the whole idea behind the Pay Yourself First project, is to invest in yourself first so that you can be a better version of yourself and help the other people around you. So again, just want to say thank you. So today, okay, I just did my first triathlon of the season a couple days ago, all right? And it wasn't anything crazy. I've done a couple 70.3s in the past, and this one was a sprint triathlon. But there were some unique things about this one that made it a different challenge for me. And I really just wanted to kind of walk through what I personally took away from that experience, and what I'm gonna be taking into, those triathlons moving forward, and then also kind of how I'm gonna apply those to life. So, really, I think it's important to understand that, like, for me, when it comes to triathlon, right, you've got swim, you got bike, you got run. Bike, no big deal, right? For me, like as a former athlete, like biking and running, like you can grind through that. But swimming, on the other hand, like I didn't grow up in the water. I didn't grow up around water. I never had a formal swimming lesson. Like I really say that, I can swim well enough to survive if I was put in a bad situation. But as far as being skilled at it or comfortable in the water, that's a no-go. And I've practiced a lot, but there's still just something about the open water that I'm struggling with mentally. And so I'm going to stay committed to fixing that. But what I was thinking about right before we got in the water is I was doing this with my buddy Nick, and it was his first one ever. And I asked him a question, and I asked him, like, would we even do triathlon if it wasn't for the swim? Like, would we come out here and just bike and run? And we both were like, no, like biking and running is not that hard. Like we literally show up for the struggle, right? And like the struggle is why we're here. The swim is why we're here. The challenge is why we're here, right? And so I share that with you to, kind of remind you of, like, when you choose to do something that you believe is going to help you grow, right? Whether it be physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in your career, whatever it might be. When you say, hey, I'm going to go do that thing that I'm not good at, that I'm not comfortable doing, because I know it's going to help me grow. When that gets hard, and when you get scared, when you get anxious, when you get afraid of whatever it might be, remind yourself, like, this is why I'm here. Like, this is why I did this, and this is why I choose to do this. And I think when you can do that, like, I don't know, you remove the negative emotion associated to it. Now, granted, when I got into that water, I mean, I still had a little bit of a panic attack throughout the first couple hundred meters. But I just kept reminding myself, like, this is why I'm here. This is why I do this. Like, I did this to intentionally become uncomfortable. So why am I surprised when it becomes uncomfortable, right? And that's one of my favorite things, because I've done a lot of studying on Stoicism over the years. And one of the concepts of Stoicism is, frustration or emotions that arise really just come from, mismanaged or improperly set expectations, right? So like if I expected the swim to go really smoothly and perfectly and then it doesn't, like that's going to cause a larger reaction. But if I expect that, hey, I'm going to struggle, it's going to be hard, I'm going to want to quit, well, when that actually happens, I'm prepared for it and I don't get as emotionally thrown off by it and I'm able to actually move through it. And so like I just, I try to think about that within my life of like, I don't know, it's one of the ways that I apply this to work is like when I'm going into work every morning, like I expect it to be the hardest day of my career, right? Because ideally, if I'm progressing every single day, I'm facing new challenges that I've never faced, and it should be the hardest day that I've ever had, right? It should be the most challenging day that I've ever had. And really that allows one of two things to happen. One, if it is the hardest day I've ever had, I'm prepared for it, I'm not thrown off by it, and so I don't emotionally blow up. And two, if it's not, well then that's just a positive, right? So that's kind of one of my big takeaways and kind of how I'm going to try to apply that to life moving forward. And then, the next thing is when we were going throughout that swim, right? Nick and I, actually, it's a funny story. Again, it was his first one. I've done them before, but this one, earlier I said there was something unique about this swim that made it different. All the other triathlons I've done have been a downriver swim, and they've also been wetsuit legal. And if you're not familiar, wetsuits with that thick neoprene help you with your buoyancy and they help you float. I mean, if you're wearing a good wetsuit, like you can legitimately just lay on top of the water and not sink. So it provides a lot of psychological comfort and a lot of physical comfort because it makes, you don't have to really put a whole lot of effort into floating. You just have to move your arms and legs and you cruise. And then obviously with it being downriver, you've got some current that can help with that. But this one, the water was 88 degrees, 89 degrees, so well beyond what is wetsuit even allowed. So there's no wetsuit, and it was also a lake swim. So no current, no wetsuit, like complete other side of the scale of challenge when it comes to an open water swim from what I had been used to. And then it was also Nick's first one. And with it being a lake start, like everybody gets piled up on top of each other. And I mean, within the first 100 to 200 meters, like I'm getting kicked, I'm getting punched, I'm kicking, I'm punching, like, and it's just complete and total chaos. And it's murky water, it's overcast, like it is just, it's chaos, and you can't touch the bottom. There's no, like, it causes some panic. And, the triathlons are doing a whole lot better. Like the organizers of triathlons are doing a lot better with this, where they have plenty of lifeguards, plenty of kayaks. Like everybody has the support that they need. They got motored boats and Sea-Doos and all that for water support and all that. So everybody's good, But Nick and I found ourselves accidentally on the same kayak. And Nick goes, TJ, what are you doing here? I'm like, what do you mean? And there's two funny stories about this. Nick was so disoriented that he thought that I had already finished the swim and came back to help him, which I would have done, but we hadn't been in the water that long. And two, I had asked him, I said, hey, how are you doing? He's like, not good. And I said, do you want to get out? And he said, he's like, no. And after the fact, he's like, bro, everything in me wanted to say yes, but I also wanted you, like, we both wanted the other person to be the one that, like, said get out, but we didn't want to be the people to do it. But we both wanted to get out. And that's a story for another day of the power of an accountability partner. But that's the state that we were in, okay? And it was just kind of funny how we both ended up there. And, we looked at each other, and Nick goes, hey, let's make it to that next kayak, okay? And then we'll kind of figure out what's going on when we get to there. I'm like, all right, cool. So again, the lesson, and so we got back in the water, swam, and by the time I got to the next kayak, like I just kept going, and I pretty much finished the rest of the swim unbroken. So more than 2/3 of it, which that part of it was my best competitive swim that I've ever done, and I'm very proud of that. Okay, but Nick made it that kayak, he took a break, but he worked himself and he still finished as well and did a great job. But the lesson that I learned from that is, not staying present on the task at hand is why you're struggling to actually finish the task at hand. And what I mean by that is, like, we were 100 meters into that swim. And instead of thinking about how do I just make it another 50 meters, we were thinking about we've got 650 meters left to go, right? Like it was in a U shape, right? And if you can envision like this being the whole U shape, we had made it to like here. So we still had to go all the way out here, over, and then back down. And the daunting task of doing all of that is what made us want to quit. But when we broke it down into those bite-sized chunks of just make it to the next kayak or just make it to the next buoy, like I knew I could do that, and he knew he could do that. And so that's like, for me, like, you know, when I think about just throughout my day, at work, or even in my relationship, right? Like maybe, you know, my marriage isn't where I want it to be, okay? And I don't know how I'm gonna fix, you know, maybe the disconnect that I have in my marriage, because it's gonna happen to all of us. Like, fortunately for me, it's not where I'm at right now. But my wife and I have been together for, you know, over 11 years. Like, we've been in that spot before, just like anybody has. And it's not about how am I going to make this massive change today. It's how can I do one thing today? Because the fact of the matter is, and even if we use a professional example, like if you are, you know, low man on the totem pole, okay, you're not going to make it to CEO within the matter of a year or two, right? Or you're either wildly gifted or two, you work for a really small company. But what you can do is you can get promoted from junior sales associate to sales associate, right? And you focus on what are the tasks I need to do to get from here to there. And I think a lot of people don't ever become the best version of themselves because they look at the full journey versus what they can actually do right now. And so I would encourage you, like, whatever it is that you're working on that you don't feel like, you know, you're ever going to get there, you know, stop worrying about how far you have to go and just worry about the thing that you have to do right now, because the time's going to pass either way, right? And we can either be moving forward or we can be moving backwards, but there's no staying the same. And if you can just do the task at hand in front of you, you'll realize how much more capable you are. Just like, you know, me and Nick in that swim, we wouldn't have, if you would have asked us, hey, can you swim another 650 meters? We'd have told you absolutely not. But when it was, hey, can you swim another 50? It was yes. And then that 50 turned into 100, which turned into 200, which turned into 300, which turned into all the way to 650. All because we were willing to take one more step. And so don't let the weight of the entire journey break you down. Just incremental progress, focus on the task at hand, and you'll find out that you can go a lot further than you think. And then really my last thing, and it's kind of 2 points into one, but, you know, one of my very good friends, and I've done a video with him in the past, is, you know, the Iron Cowboy, James Lawrence. And one thing that he told me before one of my Ironmans is he said, you know, suffer with gratitude, okay? And I think there's so much power in that, right? Because if you're watching this, I know you've got struggles. I've got struggles. And this is not intended to minimize my struggles or your struggles or anything like that. But we should absolutely understand that we are incredibly blessed, you know? Like, again, I'm shooting this on an iPhone. You're probably watching it on a $1,000 plus smartphone or a $1,000 plus iPad or, you know, laptop or whatever it might be. We got it pretty good, right? Like, we're not starving. We're not, you know, out on the street. You know, we're not, like, we got it pretty good. And so I should be grateful to be even in a situation where I get to willingly wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday and go and race just for the heck of it. And then go to brunch with my mom and my sister and my wife after the fact and have a great day. Like, regardless of how hard that was and how challenging that race was, like, I should be grateful to have the opportunity to suffer through it. Right? And I think that's true about everything, you know, for the vast majority of us. Like, you might be suffering right now. Like, you're probably suffering with something right now. Like, that's all that we're promised in life. You know, that's what the Bible tells us is, like, in this life there will be suffering. Like, it's the one guarantee that we have. But how grateful is it? How much gratitude should we have to even be alive? Because what's the alternative? Not being here, you know, like, and when I said there was a second thing, what I wanted to add to that is, like, smiling can make everything better. And so even, you know, as freaked out as I was about the swim, now granted we finished strong, you know, I know I had time to make up on the bike and the run, and I was really, really pushing myself, and I was starting to suffer. I was starting to hurt, starting to get a side stitch. Legs are starting to burn, starting to get out of breath. Like, we all know that feeling, right? But I just decided to smile through it. And I decided to, you know, encourage every single participant that I went past. And I, you know, went to thank every single, you know, volunteer that I went past. And it made the entire race so incredibly enjoyable. And even though I was physically suffering, mentally I was, you know, really, really fulfilled. And it made the whole experience that much better. And I think, you know, again, like, a lot of you might be watching this and thinking like, hey, I would never do a triathlon, I'd never do this or whatever. And that's fine. I'm not here to sell you on triathlon. But what I am here to sell you on is pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, whatever that might be. And when you do it, smile while you're doing it. No matter how uncomfortable you get, how much you suffer or anything like that, smile while you're doing it, because you've been blessed by God in this country to have the opportunity to willingly grow, do things outside of your comfort zone to grow, right? Whether it be working out, whether it be reading a book, whether that be, I don't know what it is, but pushing yourself outside your comfort zone, like, is a blessing, And so suffer with gratitude. Smiling makes everything better. And yeah, so that's really kind of the breakdown of my first triathlon. So if you've made it this far in the video, thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm excited to get back to making more of these, whether it be training vlogs, cooking vlogs, little mindset chats like this, or lifestyle vlogs. My wife and I are going to Mexico here in a couple weeks, so I'm excited to share that with you guys as well. But again, if you got value from this, I just ask that you like, comment, share, subscribe, the whole thing, because yeah, man, I don't know everything, and I'm not trying to tell anybody what to do, but I just want to share what I'm doing and what's working for me, in hopes that it helps you. So I love you guys. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you next time.